This is my very late review of the Sony Trinitron KV-M1450D. Well, because it was released in the 90s. The reason I bought it is because I wanted to play these old retro games, classic games, the way they meant to be played. These games were designed specifically to match the CRT displays. They bring some advantages that even modern displays don't have or struggle with, or just won't be as perfect as CRT displays for playing classic games. Things like, for example, like zero motion blur or near zero input lag, native resolution handling, light gun compatibility. Like if you're using, for example, the Nintendo Zapper or Sega Light Phaser. They have natural anti-aliasing scan lines. They have this unique phosphor glow and bloom that just you can't replicate it with filters. While OLEDs ever perfect blacks, for example, many users will tell you that the blacks on CRTs add kind of a depth because of the CRT tube. That image it gives the image kind of a 3D-like quality that flat panels lack. Now, in the retro gaming community, 14-inch Sony Trinitrons are often called the Goldilocks monitors. They are sharp enough to look professional, but small enough to fit on desk. The M1450D uses a Black Trinitron tube. Unlike standard gray CRTs, this glass is heavily tinted. This absorbs ambient light, meaning the black levels are incredibly deep, almost ink-like. Now, crucially, again, this screen is curved. So while the later, for example, silver WEGA models went flat, they introduced geometry problems. Straight lines would often bow or ripple. Because the M1450D is curved, it follows the natural physics of the electron gun. The result, near perfect linearity on 2D side-scrollers right out of the box. You can actually see kind of a close-up of the Trinitron in the kind of macro shot. So being a Trinitron, it uses the aperture grill instead of shadow mask. This means you don't get a honeycomb pattern, you get unbroken vertical phosphor stripes, and this creates those thick, distinct scan lines that define the 240p look. Now, on its back, it has RGB SCART connector. This is the TV's superpower. It accepts RGB video, bypassing the TV's internal color decoder. For example, if you feed this TV an RGB signal from SNES or Genesis, you get a pixel perfect sharpness. There's no dot crawl and no color bleeding. Of course, you want to make sure that you have a high quality cable that will work well with that. Now, the input also makes the TV region free. So even though this is a European PAL TV, if you feed it an NTSC 60Hz signal via RGB, it handles it perfectly. But one thing to note, and I haven't checked it, some people mention that in order to use the service menu, you need to use it with a 50 Hz signal. Now, there's an important thing to know that there's also the hardware lottery, the BE2A versus the BE4. So in general, if you see something that is less than 3 million, when you check out the two serial number ranges, it's analog. If it's above 3 million, it's digital. So before you buy one, you need to know which version you are looking at. The model number KV-M1450D was used for two different internal generations. So what you see here is the BE4. So early models use the BE2A chassis. They are fully analog, so if you want to adjust the screen size or position, you have to open the case and turn physical knobs with a screwdriver while the TV is on. It's risky and inconvenient. Like here, for example, I had an issue, right? You see it's not centered. You can see on the left the icons are kind of cut off. So just imagine getting a TV now and having this thing and need to just send it maybe to a technician to solve this. It's just add to the cost. So later models, the one you see here, usually with the serial number starting at 3 million and above, use the BE4 chassis. These are digital. They feature service menu allowing you to calibrate the geometry using the remote control for most gamers. Now the BE4 is the one that you want. So just putting into a certain sequence, I use an IR blaster with a certain remote app on my phone to do that, because I didn't have the original remote controller, I was able to access this and correct it. Also, if you get the digital BE4 model, you will likely encounter the 60 Hz squash. So when you play, for example, American NTSC games, the faster refresh rate often causes the image to shrink vertically. So you can fix this as well quite easily. You just need to access the service menu, put the TV in standby mode, Then press, the certain buttons, what you see, until I get to this menu, and then navigate to the vertical size, and you will need to increase this volume, usually around 44 or 48, to stretch the image to fill the screen. Know that some units struggle to save separate settings for 50 Hz and 60 Hz, so you may need to find a middle ground setting that works for both if you play PAL games alongside your NTSC games. And this makes things so much convenient, and you can see I actually fixed it. It just took me just a few minutes. Seconds if I knew actually what to do from the beginning. Any visual artifacts, by the way, that you see is because of the camera recording. It's not visible on the screen when I play. In this particular case, by the way, it was HPOS, horizontal position, horizontal centering of the image. Now, in terms of audio, the only real downside is the sound, which is M in the model name, you can see it, which stands for mono. It is a single speaker, so for the best experience, break out the audio from your console cable and run into an external stereo speakers. So what you should be looking for is a SCART breakout adapter. This device plugs into the SCART port on the back of your TV and has a female SCART socket on the other end to connect to your existing RGB cable, and it provides RCA jacks for video and audio on the side. So then you can connect the RCA audio jacks from the adapter to your external stereo amplifier or power speakers. By the way, another great advantage when you have the service menu is sometimes you're gonna find, sometimes depends of course on how the age of the screen, how well it ages, you're gonna find maybe a green tint in the blacks. Now this tube again aged, so sometimes the green ground gets a bit too strong, and this can usually be dialed back in the service menu under G-cut, green cutoff. So in general, Sony KV-M1450D is for those who want a small TV that fits on their desk, offers a PVM-like sharpness via RGB, and avoids the geometry headaches of flat screens. Then yes, this is like almost the perfect balance for consumer aesthetics and professional performance. Just make sure again that if you get it, hopefully with the original remote control, and check the serial number to make sure that you get the better model. Again, the quality of this TV is absolutely exquisite, but make sure to get a high quality cable as a RGB SCART cable, because this is going to make a huge difference. And by the way, if you are getting it from a third party, just make sure of course that you're going to check it. It's indeed a Trinitron. If you zoom very close, you can see something like that, kind of wires that red, green and blue. So it shows that this is indeed a Trinitron display. Overall, I'm very happy. It's also the 14-inch, give you kind of more intimate experience when you play. And I thought maybe I'm just used to big displays, so maybe I not enjoy it. On the opposite, it feels even better. So yeah, mostly before that I was playing on just on a LED, on LCD, and now that I start playing on a CRT, 98% of the games I definitely hands down prefer playing on the CRT. Thanks for watching.